Alright, in today's video we're going to be using our graphing calculators. So I'm going to be giving instructions for both a TI Inspire and a TI-84. We're going to use the table below that shows the height of a column of water as it drains from its container. Model the data with a quadratic function, graph the data and the function. So we're going to go ahead and plot our points. So take a minute and plot your points. All right, so see how this kind of curves a bit at the end. It's not a straight line. So what this is asking us to do is it's asking us to find the quadratic formula for this line. So in order to do that, we're going to use our calculator. So you have a TI-84 and a TI Inspire, and we're going to use both of them. A TI Inspire is going to be different. So I'm going to use a TI Inspire first, and then I will show you on a TI-84. So if you have a TI-84, go ahead and skip this part. If you have a TI Inspire, you can watch this and then skip the 84 part. So we're going to go down to this Excel spreadsheet looking button, and it's going to pull up what looks like an Excel spreadsheet document, and we're going to scroll up to this A cell, and we're going to click X, which is like down here, and then we're going to scroll down and over to B, and we're going to click Y, and then we're going to go to our X column, and we're just going to list all of our X values, and we're going to hit enter every time we do. So 40, enter, 50, enter, 60, enter. And then we're going to scroll all the way back up to the Y, and we're going to hit all of our Y values, and we're going to hit enter after every one. Okay, so now that we have them all entered, make sure that your cursor or your cell that's highlighted is not one with a number. So then we're going to click this home button, this on button, and it's going to bring us back to the home page. And then we're going to scroll over to data and statistics. It looks like a bar graph. And it's going to have a screen with a bunch of points on it. And maybe yours doesn't look exactly like this. So we're going to go down to the x-axis, and it says click to add variable here. We're going to click in there, and we're going to click X because that's the x-axis. And then we're going to scroll over to the y-axis, and we're going to click to add y, and it's going to make our points look like a quadratic equation. So now the next step is we're going to hit menu, which is right here. So we're going to click menu. We're going to scroll down to analyze. We're going to scroll down to regression, and we're going to scroll down to show quadratic. And it's going to come up with this quadratic equation. And this is the quadratic equation for the graph that we put on our page 53. Okay, so then what I want you to do is I want you to round to 3 decimal points when you're writing your equation. And then, so go ahead and skip the next part about TI-84, and then we will come back together at the end. All right, so with a TI-84, you're given this screen automatically. First thing we're going to do is we're going to click this Stat button right here next to the left arrow. So it says Stat on it. And then we have these like lists, and we can scroll to the right and the lists change. I want you to hover over Edit, and we're actually going to hit the Enter button. And it's going to bring us to these values here, and I'm actually going to delete whatever I have in here right now, and if you have anything in your list, you can go ahead and delete that too. So under L1, we're going to list all of our X values, so 0, 10, 20, 30, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and then we're going to scroll over to our L2 and we're going to list all of our y values. Okay, make sure that the number of x values that we have in the L1 column matches with the number of y values we have in the L2 column. And then we're going to hit the Stat button again, and we're going to scroll to the right to Calc, and we're going to scroll down to this Quad Reg, it means quadratic regression, and we're going to hit Enter. And it's just going to make sure that we have everything listed like we want. So if the column that we listed all of our x values under is under L1, y values was under L2, and then we're going to scroll down to this Calculate and hit Enter. And it's going to come up, it's going to show us the standard form of a quadratic equation, and then it's going to show us the coefficients for a, b, and c. So where it says a, b, and c here in our standard form, we're just going to replace a, b, and c with what it gives us, and we're going to round to 3 decimal places. So our equation for both calculators was y equals 0.09 squared minus 2.104x, because we round, plus 120.333. So use your model to estimate the water level at 25 seconds and at 30 seconds. So at 25 and 35 seconds, we know our x values were in the unit seconds. So we can go ahead and plug 25 and 30 in. So we're going to use our model. So 0.009 parentheses 25 squared minus 2.104 parentheses 25 plus 120.333. And it's going to give us 73.358. For answers, we're going to round to 1 decimal unless it specifies otherwise. And our units on that are millimeters. So then we're going to plug in 35. And that's going to give us 57.7 millimeters. So notice that the number of seconds it asks us to find are in between all of these seconds. So they're in between here and here, and that 73.4 is in between 83 and 66, and 57.7 is in between 66 and 50. Okay, use your model to estimate the water level at 3 minutes. Does your answer make sense, and explain? We can't just plug in 3 to our equation because the units on our time is seconds. So in order to plug in 3 minutes, we have to take 3 times, there's 60 seconds in a minute, and we get 180 seconds. So then in our equation, we can plug in 180. And we get 33.2. So at 180 seconds, we get 33.2 millimeters of water. At 60 seconds, we're already down to 28. Now, in terms of a quadratic, we know quadratics and their graphs are parabolas. They look like U's. So it would make sense that at 180 seconds, it eventually starts to come back up. But our problem is that we're draining water from a container. When the water drains all the way out and we continue draining, it doesn't automatically fill right back up with no water being put in it. We're not talking about filling up the container, we're talking about draining the container. So it doesn't make sense in terms of our problem. At 180 seconds, the water level is more than it was at 60 seconds. So, no, it doesn't make sense. All right, so those steps that you're going to take in your calculator are pretty important. If you need to rewind and make sure that you have memorized those steps, go ahead. There's also a calculator help sheet in my classroom if you need one.